Dave is the vice president, and Mark asked me to do, we did a demo at the Ham Holiday, what, 2 years ago? And Mark asked me at the Cora meeting if I would come out here and give this presentation, so here I am. How many of you have ever heard of ARDEN? Is that all right?
Much better.
All right, cool. How many of you heard of ARDEN? The Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. I got involved about 2 years ago and had made the decision that Oklahoma City needed the ARDEN. We have any emergency management people in here? ARDEN is really cool. It's a closed wireless network is what it is. It uses radios in the 2.4 gigahertz range, in the 5 gigahertz, 3.8 gigahertz, and 900 megahertz. Most of the stuff, well, all of the stuff that is on this table, I got off of eBay. You can get most of this stuff dirt cheap. So, it's a high-speed multimedia mesh network, meaning that each radio talks with each other radio. So, if you have 15, 20 nodes in a mesh and you lose one, no big deal. Mesh networking started back in 2001. The ARRL had decided they would like to get involved with mesh networking. So they got a bunch of amateurs together and said, hey, let's create this group and let's look at mesh networking. So the group got together and they spent 4 or 5 months playing around with some things, and it didn't last long. The league decided, we're not getting much information here, we're not doing a whole lot with this, so we're going to disband it. Well, those guys that were part of that group formed another group, and they called it BBHN, Broadband Ham Network. And that still exists today. The problem with that network is they use the, the WRT54Gs, the Linksys, little blue boxes that connect with your networks. And they use those for a long time, and they're still using them today, even though they are starting to use some of the ubiquity stuff, which is what ARDEN uses today. Then there's HamWAN. HamWAN, it exists today too, but it's not going very good either. Along came ARDEN. 2 or 3 of the guys that belong to the BBHN network got together and said, we're not going anywhere with these WRT54Gs. We need something a little more powerful. So they started doing some work with the ubiquity stuff. This is the ubiquity radio, 2.4 gigs. And after the demonstration's over, I'll bring out a bunch of other stuff and you can see what all the other stuff looks like. They produced a code. It's the same code that BBHN uses, only they've expanded it to work with pretty much only the ubiquity stuff. They have since expanded from ubiquity to MikroTik and CP-Link. So this stuff is out there, and it's dirt cheap, as we'll see here in a minute. But anyway, ARDEN got together and said, let's do some things a little bit different. For instance, on 2.4 gigahertz, which is the frequency that your home networks tie into Wi-Fi. Well, you've got 1 through, I forget how many channels, but there's quite a few. But they extended that for amateur radio to channel -1, channel -2. And they are specifically for ham radio. What else can get on that? It cut down the interference a lot. When they first started this and they had to get on 2.4 gigahertz with as many wireless networks were out there, it was really cluttered. They really got some interference and it was pretty unusable. Well, when they went to the -1 and -2 channels, all that went away. So I run my network today. The ARDEN mesh that I have at the house is all on channel -2. And those two operate exclusively in Part 97. So all your other folks out there who, you know, Billy Bob who's running the network at the house is not going to get on your channel. Okay, so things we need to understand. What is a node? A node is a radio that has embedded Linux on it. ARDEN wrote the code. So when you get a Ubiquiti bullet or a Ubiquiti radio, it comes with AirOS. And that's the standard firmware that's on firmware and software that's on the radio. You have to put ARDEN code on it. And www.ardenmesh, AREDN-MESH.org is the site where you can find all this information. And they tell you how to do all of this. They tell you how to put the code on, the procedures you need to go through to make that happen. Sometimes it can be a little lengthy, but it works. So we understand the mesh network. All these radios talk to each other, so if you lose one, no big deal. All the others use a protocol called Optimized Link State Routing Protocol. And what this does is all these radios connect together, they do a signal report. They do a signal report between each other. So they will determine that the path cost between all this stuff, and it provides them a path cost. So if I'm going from A to B, simple, my path cost is 1.25. If I lose this path, then I have the option of going this way, this way, this way, this way, or this way. So which way does he choose? He chooses the lowest path cost. So the path between A and C is 1.0. The path between C and D is 2.10. So we end up with 3.10. OLSR says, I'm going this way, 1, 1, 1, and up, because now it's only 3. So he chooses that path. So anytime you lose a radio, they recalculate everything to see which way is the best path. So we end up with, this is your standard Wi-Fi access. So you have your internet, which is the cloud, and then you have a router, wireless, AP, whatever, firewall more than likely. You may have some that are hardwired, and you may have some in your house or your business that are wireless. We have pretty much the same thing with ARDEN, except ARDEN expands it to, now you have the mesh, and we'll call this the backbone, because and that's what we're trying to do in Oklahoma City right now. And I'll go over that in a minute. But you have the regular internet, and you have your home or your business or whatever. You have the firewalls between them, and then you have this switch or router. And everything connects from here, down to here, out to here. Well, now, with the mesh, now keep in mind, ARDEN says we don't really want to connect our stuff via the internet. ARDEN's for MCOM. So if you tornado and you lose the internet for whatever reason, the mesh is still there. You can still talk. That's why it's important for us, if we're going to do ARDEN in Oklahoma City, we need to build the backbone first. I have permission to put 3 5 gigahertz radios with that antenna that's behind you right here. This one. This is a 5 gigahertz, 120 degree sector antenna. I have 3 radios, 5 gigahertz radios, that we're going to put up on the Sandridge building. They will cover full 360 degrees. That's the start. So we need people that are going to take that opportunity and try to buy a 5 gigahertz radio that would link into the mesh. So for instance, if you have, well, let's just take this, we have a shelter site.
What's the range on that?
It depends on which radio you're using. The record communication line of sight right now using rockets, M5 rockets, is 96 miles.
Well, I'm talking like, right, here to Sandridge.
Once again, it depends. If you're antenna, like at my location, I live in southeast Oklahoma City. I've done a path prediction from Sandridge to my house, and as long as I am up at 25, 30 feet, I've got a clear path to Sandridge. So we kind of, anybody who's AirOS, AirLink is what it's called, you can run AirLink and pinpoint your house and pinpoint the Sandridge building and see if you have a clear path, and we're going to go over that here in a minute. So we have shelter sites. That could mean these portable units. These portable units back here that I have set up, one here, one back there, are using what's called a ubiquity bullet. Line of sight, about 3 miles. This is good for demos. It's good for if I'm out at a, let's say I'm out at, for instance, Westmore during a tornado. We could set one of those up, going back to another one, and maybe back up to what's called a last mile link, and then get into the network that way. That's 2.4 gigs. So this is going to be a 5 gig backbone. There will be 2.4 gig radios on there also, but at other positions, like my house, I have a straight shot link between my house and the Sandridge building. I'll have a 5 gig radio pointed to Sandridge, and there will also be 2.4 gig radios. I'll have like 3 or 4 of those on my mast. And other people that decide they want to get into it, you know, we'll start setting things up. Mark's going to do Norman, and he should have, I've done a path prediction to the OU, and it's clear. So you should have no problem. Where are you going to put it?
Physical Science Center, Blender Building. We'll do the same thing here, 3 sector coming off of the physical sciences, and then point to point, which you link back to.
How high is that? Because
legally or actually?
Actually.
Legally, it's 199 feet.
Okay, so you...
Actually, it's more than that.
all you needed to be up was, what did we say, 50 feet. And you'll have a clear path.
Good.
And I'll go clear path thing here in a minute. So bottom line is we're going to try to build the backbone. I asked everybody in this room, because I've asked all the folks in Ocapa, that if you know somebody, emergency managers, whatever, that knows somebody that would be willing to put a radio on top of a building, on top of a water tower, whatever, so that we can start building this mesh backbone for Oklahoma City. Eventually, we'd like to get Norman, Oklahoma City, Yukon, as far as we can go. Guys up in Tulsa, they're interested. The problem there is distance. But there's what's called a tunnel, which utilizes, matter of fact, this radio, I'm tunneled to my house through the internet, through that box and through the hotspot here. And we'll go over that in a second too. But bottom line is that's what we're trying to do in Oklahoma City, is to get this mesh going. And here's another image showing you how the different types of radio. 3 gigahertz. There's nobody on 3 gigahertz. The radios are expensive, they're more so than the 5 gig or 2.4 gig because it's all commercial. But there are frequencies available that are amateur use exclusively. So this just shows you that they're the fixed backbone. He's got 3 different radios, 3 gig, 5, and 2, all going in the same switch. So network-wise, it doesn't matter. Okay. So here's the deployed ham, i.e. portable like this, portable like that, or 5 gig rocket radios are only about brand spanking new, about $80.
When you say ham, is that tech,
Yeah.
general?
All of them.
Tech and above.
Tech and above, doesn't matter.
Okay.
All you novices in the room, sorry.
Okay, software. It's open source. ARDEN has produced this. They've written, matter of fact, they wrote, 2 guys that are in ARDEN now, were in BBHN, wrote that software that was running on the WRT-54Gs. They've ported it over to the Ubiquity stuff, the TP-Link stuff, and now the Microtech stuff. And the team, there's been a shake-up with the team, but it's they had one guy who, it was like at a board meeting. You've got one guy who, he's the boss. Well, this one guy, when they would go and say, hey, you know, we'd like to add this to the code. No, we're not going to do that. So after about 3 or 4 years of that stuff, they got tired of it, so they booted him, said you're done. And now, since they have gotten rid of this guy, they have added 18 different code changes in the last year and a half.
So if you go look this up when you get back home and you go look up ARDEN, you're going to find a link to arden.org. That's the old stuff. The new one is called ardenmesh.org. Important to know that. Otherwise you'll be getting some stale info.
Okay, equipment.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. First of all, if you're gonna cite these things on top of obstacles, you know, poles and buildings and whatnot, who's gonna pay for that site and how do you power them? And what happens to your network if you have a large tornado or something go through town and take a bunch of those structures down?
Like I said, because it's one big mesh, you can take out half of them. The mesh is still there. As far as maintenance, all it requires, it's called power over Ethernet. So this is a PoE device, power over Ethernet. One side is the PoE, and in this case, this is powered by 12 to 24 volts.
Or do you get that?
This comes with the radio. Whenever you buy a radio,
You have to plug it into something, aren't you?
yes, you plug it into AC line.
A
I
power
know,
switch.
who pays for the power? Who provides that?
Well, that's why we're looking for people
The
who
host.
will help us out by giving, for instance, Sandridge.
Sandridge will and OU will.
Yes. So we're not, I mean, I'm not going to go into a place that says, well, it's going to cost you $200 a month for power. No, we're not.
Probably less power than a light bulb we use.
So it very little. So if there's electricity there, they won't even know we're there.
It's like a normal repeater operation.
Yes, sir.
On those, you also have, each one of those radios will also have like a battery backup too, right? If the power goes out, you have the battery power running like 10 hours or so?
Yeah, what I have is, yeah, you can do that. These 2 portables are actually run off a battery. And they go through a converter. So, but I can plug it directly into electricity too, so either way.
A question, you have two cables coming out of your power supply.
One goes to the network. So one powers the radio
Okay.
and the other side goes to a network.
Yeah, you're going to an inverter and then a power supply, so you're going 12 volts to 120 volts back to 12 volts and just make it connect, so you go right from the battery right to the radio.
Yeah, the only problem is that you're talking 24 volts now.
Or two 12 volt batteries in
You
series.
can do whatever you want,
12
Frank.
volt flow charger.
It matters not.
You have a question up front?
Does OEM know about this and have they bought into it, and also is an operation secure? Our Kennedy operation secure?
Yeah, since it's closed. It's a closed loop.
Okay.
So, for instance, now, right now, because of the demonstration, I've got a tunnel between here and my house across the internet. And it is protected via firewall.
Okay, but Oklahoma Emergency Management,
We haven't discussed it with them yet. That's the problem. Now, I'm a Red Cross volunteer, just like he is.
so am I.
And Clarence Worsler, WA5, or
Yes.
LDY, whatever it's called. I'm going to get with him, and he is a CERT. Anybody CERT team members?
Certain sector.
And I need to get with you guys because you guys know Frank Barnes, and I need to talk to Frank Barnes.
Right.
But before we do that, we want to get this set up so that we can give them a great demo for it.
You need to talk to John Comstock too.
Okay?
Yeah. And Putman Ryder.
Okay. I'll get with you after this.
Yeah, we'll give up that.
But that's our goal, is to get buy-in for emergency management. We as hams, we don't want to take the place of what they already have. We want to augment them.
Want to use, have radio.
That's perfect. And this is just what we need. The city of Oklahoma City and whoever else wants to buy into this is what we need. This is perfect stuff. Okay, this is the 2.4 gig and 3.4 gig stuff. And then here's the 5 gig. If you look, the 2.4 gig stuff, the brown, where it says ham band, all of that's non-shared. So we've got those two frequencies, channel -1, channel -2. In the 5 gig range, we also start from about channel 178 to 184 is exclusively ham band. Okay, here's some prices. Now this is as of November of last year. So you can buy an air grid, which is, I'll show them later. An air grid for $65, an air router, this is an air router here. Now this is the HP one, high performance, because it has 2.4 gigs for both internet and for wireless to get from this to that, whatever. So that, I have one at the house, WD5G has one at his house. This is Microtik, M-I-K-R-O-T-I-K. They're a newcomer, but they've ported the code. This does the same thing as that air router without the antennas. The antennas are built in. So for a bullet, that's one of these things. Without the antenna was $5 off of eBay. This is a bullet. Line of sight, 2-3 miles. So you can get them all day long for $79 plus the antenna. A nano bridge, nano station, pico station, they're all different. Some of them have sector antennas inside, some of them have flat panel arrays inside. So, and then of course the TP-Link equivalents. Power output, 200 milliwatts to 630 milliwatts, which when you're talking about at frequencies of 5 gigahertz, even with that, you're talking about a lot of power anyway. And with dish antennas, 34 dB dish antennas, that's a pretty good signal. This is the micro-tick. There's three different versions. This is the 2 gig and 5 gig radio, and this is the router board that I'm using here. Now the good thing about the router board, it has PoE. It can draw power from a PoE. It can also supply power. It has an auto sensing deal. When you plug something in, if it doesn't sense 12 to 24 volts, it turns it off. Therefore, you're not going to burn up switches or laptops or whatever. And then on the side, it has a USB port. In my case, I use the USB port to power an open spot too. We'll get into that in a minute, which is a hot spot. Yes.
I have a question. Once you get the signal out of the radio, I mean, are you just at regular TCP/IP at that point? Can you use any switch or router? Okay.
Yeah, that's all this is.
Right.
This is just a regular old Netgear switch.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the nano station. This is a rocket. This is what we're going to be putting on the standards building. And the guy, how many of you know Steve Hazelwood? His father, Larry.
Larry.
Yeah. Steve is the machine gun guy at Wilshire Gun. He also, his high school buddy is the guy who owns Sandridge. So he has a permanent lease to Sandridge upstairs.
That's a shame, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's just,
Yeah.
it's terrible. And anyway, I talked with Steve. Steve has agreed to let me put the 3 radios with the sector antennas on top of Sandridge. We haven't done that yet because I recently retired back in September of last year, so I didn't have a whole lot of time. Now I do. And hopefully Dave and I are going to go down there one day before the end of the month and get with Steve, go look at the building, make sure I've got plenty of places to put these sector antennas. Put them up. Once they're up, we'll have a start. And he's going to bring Norman online, and I'll have my house online, which I'm tunneled to WD5G's house because between him and I, we can't RF between each other because he has this big, huge hill in the way. So, let's see. Here's the nano bridge, an air grid, and here's the bullet. Now, most of these, the bullet is a single polarity. All the other ones are dual polarity. They have both a horizontal and a vertical component. And that's, by the way, if you're going to buy something, that's the way to go. The bullets are great if you've got, you got a guy in your neighborhood who has a radio and you can go to his house that way. But bouncing between is fine. Like I said, 3 miles line of sight max. So you're going to want something a little bit better than that. And the air router, it's a router, and it's also a switch. It has 4 ports. The routing function is 2. Power beam, a little more oomph.
As hams, we get more power than the commercial guys do. So what you see in the commercial stuff where they're linking wireless internet supporters, you'll see traffic running. We get a lot more power output than they do in our bands, so we can pee in our own pool.
Right, right. For instance, if you have a Netgear router at the house that you're doing Wi-Fi, you're limited to like milliwatts.
Mm-hmm.
Not me.
Yeah, we had a question about the power requirements. almost all of these devices, the bullets and the rockets, use a maximum of 8 watts of power. The little bullet is 6.5 watts. It's negligible.
You'll never even know you got turned on from your electricity bill, I'll put it that way. I've got an air router, I've got a bullet, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't notice it. Antenna choices. You have Omni antennas. This is an Omni antenna that's on this bullet here. But you also have the sector antennas, which is what this is. So you have 90-degree sectors and you have 120-degree sectors. In our case, this is 120 degree. So I'll be putting 3 radios up with 3 antennas, and we'll cover 160 degrees from the Sanders building, which is 393 feet tall. And then you have the dishes. Usually the sector antennas, probably 23, 22, 23 dBi. The dishes up to 34 dBi. But they have a very narrow beam width, just like all your other beams do, but very narrow. So these you really have to get out there and point these. Network design. The backbone is the most important thing. Once you get a backbone up, then you can start linking into the backbone using your relay nodes. Your relay nodes are going to be pointed to the backbone. So once you have your backbone up, your relay nodes are up, then your deployed nodes, i.e. the ones in the back and this one. This is my mobile. I can drive around town with this plugged into my truck, and I'm on the mesh because I'm tunneled. It's always tunneled to my house. So I have the capability to do that. How do you build it? California has probably the best network on it. They're linked clean up into Washington State. But mountaintop to mountaintop with 34 dB dishes, you can pretty much go a long way. So they have a very good backbone going on. The Memphis, Tennessee has a good one. Dallas, Texas, they have a fairly good one, but all of theirs are dependent, like we're going to be dependent, is on high buildings, water towers, things like that. So it's imperative that we pass the word, and it's imperative that, you know, once we get to the point where emergency management knows what we want to do for them, and we have that capability, I don't see how they can turn us down. But then you have your deployed nodes, which would be the bullets or anything you want to use as a deployed node. Everything, all of my nodes are in plastic boxes. So there's one right there, and then the back, there's one back there. They're not very big, but I carry all of them in a plastic box, and they can, once I get through here, I pack everything up, they go back into separate boxes, and I'm ready to go. Here is AirLink. What AirLink does is they've done extensive work on AirLink, and they take point A and point B. You punch in dBi gain of your antenna, the radio you're using, and the height that it's sitting at. And you do it for the same one on your B side. And then it determines, this is called the Fresnel zone. That blue is line of sight. And that's what you're going to need for these radios because they are at microwave frequencies. So, line of sight. But you have your first Fresnel zone, which is the dark green. And then you have a 60% clearance zone, which is the dotted green. You don't want, preferably you'd like to have it look just like this, so that you don't have any trees or anything else that you're trying to go through, or taller buildings that you're trying to go through. So you would go out to AirLink It's airlink.ubnt.com. Locate your house and then locate the Sandridge building and see whether you have a line of sight to Sandridge building. If not, like in Dave's case back there, we're gonna have to find something between him and Sandridge so that he can point a radio to that site and that site points to Sandridge. So we'll have a note at the Red Cross building in Oklahoma City because it's a direct line of sight. So this is what we use to determine whether or not you have a clear line of sight, or you may have some obstacle. If you've got, for instance, if this was touching that green, that would be okay. But if it was touching that second green line, maybe not. So this is what you want to strive for here. That's why, being up at 393 feet, most of us in Oklahoma City will be able to see the Sandridge building from our houses, unless you have some big building in your way. And we'll just have to figure that out. Now we get to the good part. What can we do once we get online? Well, WinLink. We can use WinLink. Web servers, and I'll show you all this here in a minute. PBX. I have a phone here, I have a phone back there. For the demo today, we're going to say this is a deployed location, this will be a deployed location. My house will be the EOC. So when I call my house, my wife's going to answer. So she'll be the EOC. So we will, we'll show you how easy this will do. What?
Does she know she's the EOC?
She does.
Okay.
She gets paid.
I called her this morning, I said, honey, I'm going to call you. She says, I don't want to talk to anybody. Talk to me. You can also do video. Okay? I have a camera at my house that points in my radio room. Eventually it's going to go up on the tower to point outside. But you also have CERT abilities and Red Cross. Like I said, there will be a node at the Red Cross building in Oklahoma City, just like I'm sure he'll probably have one for one down here in Norman. Mesh Chat. It's an application that runs on the radio, and what it allows you to do is talk to anybody that's on the mesh. When I first got started about about 2 years ago, I did a tunnel between me and California. So I was seeing everything that they were seeing in Central California. And Mesh Chat, you get on there and talk to anybody you want to. Because the entire ARDEN network is on the 10.x.x.x network. Everything. And because the routing protocol, everybody's going to see everybody else as long as you're tunneled in. So, in my case, Dave's tunneled to me. I can do Mesh Chat with him, or anybody else that it sees, we can do Mesh Chat with. So, go ahead.
Just my observation up front, so you're not going to be able to tunnel into anything if the internet goes down, so
Exactly.
what value is that going to be?
It's not.
You have local.
The only value is that allows for people like Dave, who right now there is no tunnel,
Right.
no network. ARDEN says our primary interest is a closed loop network. No internet.
Okay.
But this will work over locally RF connected nodes. So if you had a half a dozen in that field, you'd
Right.
be able to talk and you can do send text messages.
Right, that's the important part, but the tunneling business.
Strictly secondary.
Right, okay.
Strictly secondary. We know that. We know that an earthquake or a tornado or a fire can take the network down and it's not going to be available. We don't want to rely on that. We want to rely only on the mesh itself, a closed loop network. That's why we need a good backbone.
The other piece is you're not gonna take the whole thing down. If Oklahoma City still has internet connection and Norman does not, you could get on through the mesh, go to the OU mesh and enter the Oklahoma City node and get out of that piece. So
Well,
it doesn't have to take out.
Who pays for this, network, all the infrastructure?
To be determined.
Whoever puts up the systems.
For instance,
Whoever puts up the system is what it's.
everything that you see up here and back there, is mine, I bought it, okay? Now, I'm not saying that we're gonna rely on everybody to buy their own. But as far as the backbone's concerned, right now, I bought three of these for $100. My radios were about $50 a piece, so I've got, $250 that's going up on the Sanders building to start our backbone. I'm not asking anybody in here to do the same. What I'm gonna try to do is if I get with the emergency managers, maybe we can get them to do a grant, things like that. It's just a possibility.
They're looking for grants. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, the mesh is stronger the more people that put up the
Yes.
stuff to get it.
Yes.
You want to make it as strong as possible as reach, kind of like electricity. If one thing goes down, it reroutes to another one. So the more people we have that get on it, the more people that
Yeah.
put into it, the better
So
the
if you have a
network
tornado
gets.
goes to the middle of town, takes everything in the middle out,
We
you
can
still
get
got
around it.
everybody else because that mesh heals itself.
What about capability with satellites or something of that nature? You'd have to have a lot of power or something of that nature.
Yeah, but I don't know of anybody that's doing satellite on an ARDEN mesh. I mean, I'm not saying it's,
It's a possible feasibility or something
Yeah,
of that.
if it's IP, it's IP. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter how it
He's
goes.
using a Verizon, or who's MiFi?
Verizon.
Verizon MiFi. It could be a satellite link, it could be two tin cans in a string.
As long as it's got an IP address.
Yeah.
As long as it's got an IP address, you're good.
Got a question back here? Go ahead.
Yeah, they also have, like, for regular cell phones, they have something similar to ARDEN. It's a mesh network, it's a spool unit about that big, you put it on your backpack. And I think there's 3 different companies making 3 different setups, but it connects to your cell phone by Bluetooth, and you get a whole bunch of people. The low power devices have their own built-in transceivers and batteries and everything, and you would form a network that's similar to that. So if the cell phone system goes down, people within a certain distance can still talk back to their cell phone.
What about overload of the system?
No. There's not that much traffic going over. I mean, I
If you overload it, we'll build more.
this is a DMR radio.
Right.
And it's connected to that, I can connect to this open spot too. Because I have an internet connection, I can go out DMR on the 31403. So, you're not gonna overload it. There's not that much traffic on it. Even if you have a bunch of people running WinLink, just very little bits and pieces go through that.
31403 dedicated.
No, 31403 is Oklahoma Link. I just chose that because there are a lot of people on Oklahoma Link using it. So when we get to the demo portion of this, then hopefully and we're there. Did you plug that back in back there?
I have some questions though, real quick. If they're gonna set a node up on standards and gonna set one up OU, okay, so I'm kind of in between there, what would be recommended that I do at my house so that I'd be able to, just at the individual level, what equipment would be best there that you'd recommend?
I would say looking at a nano station or a rocket M5 or 2.4 gig, because you'll have to buy an external antenna with a rocket. With a nano station, it has a built-in panel array, but it's pretty powerful. I've got a nano station at my house. That's what I'm going to be using to go back to Sandy. But I live a mile south of I-240 on Sooner Road, so I have a clear line of sight. All depends on your location and how high your tower is. That's where you're going to put it. That's where you would want to sit down and do a path prediction from your house to Sanders and your house to maybe where Mark's going to put his, which gives you a better option. If you don't have,
When we get that up, we'll have another piece where we can do all of that,
Right.
and packages available.
any other questions before we go to the demo? Okay, what I've got here, is that one turned on back there?
Yep.
What we've got is, I have a node back there which is using the 2.4 gig bullet, and there's a node here that uses the 2.4 gig bullet. And then I'm tunneled to my house, which my house is tunneled to Dave, so you'll be able to see all of Dave's stuff too. But, yeah, Dave's not.
Oh. Thank you, Cheech.
There's always one in the bunch.
You should have known that.
You've met Mark, right?
Yeah.
Dave's not here, man.
You could do all this on your Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi listed here has been able to join the UX network.
All right, I'm connected. I have a Verizon hotspot that is my internet connection. And then here on this air router, I have a TP link which gets the connection from there, and then an air grid which puts it out on the mesh network. And that allows me,
I sent an air grid around the room. That's the
Yeah.
one you're seeing.
I feel it.
Is that why I have a headache?
He didn't say airhead.
Oh, man. We had a rough crowd here. Okay, here is the network as seen from the air router, my mobile. So for instance, here is the mobile right here. WD5G has one at his house. I can see him too. I can also see the node 1, which is my nano station that sits at the top of my tower. And over here is the air router itself at my house. And you can see I have a camera, I've got a web server, and then you have node 4 and node 5. So this is everything that I see right now. The ones that I'm seeing RF-wise are the mobile and the 2 nodes and that air router. Everything else, well, the other one is Dave, that I see via the mesh. So, you say, okay, that's the web server running at my house. It's a Raspberry Pi just running regular old Pi Star software. No, it's not even Pi Star, it's just Linux. So this is what my network at the house looks like. So I have a MacBook Pro that's connected to a Netgear, and there's the air router, and the phone is connected. And speaking of that, let's test the phone. I'm going to call Dave in the back room. Now, keep in mind, this could be 3 miles apart, as long as I'm line of sight. So this could be a disaster area to another disaster area, or a disaster area to an uplink like your house. So
What if Dave's not home?
then we're in trouble.
Voicemail.
Ah.
And yes, we can do voicemail with the asterisk, any extra software.
Yeah. All right. Is your phone lit up? Yeah. Now, see, something does go wrong.
I told you,
Dang it.
Maybe it's not
we're
on.
set up, and ready to go all early, and that's a bad
And
sign.
it worked.
Tree got leaves on
Your call is important to us.
it. Are you 10.38.218.82?
Yes.
And who you're trying, what IP are you trying to call?
I'm trying to call yours back there. Yeah.
I tried that and it didn't
Oh.
ring.
The second button down?
I did that earlier.
Anyway.
It's not leaking, but
Location not available.
This is where you get on 2 meters and say, hey, pick up your phone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Say, reboot your stuff.
That's where you get your pager out.
I think it's GRE.
All right, for now, let's try this.
Been there.
Like I said, you have the ability to put a camera.
Reboot.
This is my radio room, and it's a Ubiquiti Unify camera.
Is that red light supposed to be on? Not sure.
Yeah, actually it is. So, and then Mesh Chat, I'm running it on my node, so let's go down here. Mesh Chat just uses your call sign. And if there was somebody else on the mesh, wherever, you could sit there and you could type in a message to them, send it out, they would get it, and they would answer you and do whatever you need to do. So this would work well also in an emergency type situation for mesh chat. I'm trying to figure out why it's on here. Now let me see if the EOC is on. I'm not,
hey, can you hold your rocket up straight? We're not getting a very strong signal over back here. Not linking up. Here we go, got it all in there.
what?
We've got a solid light out at the top.
Still not. All right, hold on. Let's see.
Red light, I got a red light on the third from the bottom.
Yeah, you should have 2 green lights, a red, 2 blanks, and a green one at the end.
Okay, this, the second green light from the bottom is blinking. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's fine. That's network activity. Let's see.
Yeah, these are VoIP digital phones. The ones we're using today are made by a company called Grandstream. Very nice, and you get them off the internet. A brand new one is about $50 for $50, and they sound amazing. No, these are set up to get direct dial. Or you yeah, no, these are. I can put these things on the back. It still needs to sit. That's kind of where. As long as you're doing that, you can look at each one of these nodes once you get linked up in the system, and you can look at what the version of code they're running, and traffic levels, and you can have visibility in the whole network. Not well.
Dave, reboot your phone, please. Pardon? Reboot the phone. Maybe after the
Would you like me to put in a help ticket?
Put a help ticket in.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's the help desk?
What they're attempting to set up is just a phone-to-phone link where they're calling by IP address. What could happen is that we can put a PBX server, let's say, at my house, that would link into this same network. So if you had a phone on your desk, it could come through that same PBX, go hit the public network in my house, and now we can extend telephones out to remote locations. So
And the good thing about having a PBX is you can do conference calling, so yeah, you can go crazy.
And you get the public network, and you spend that traffic wherever you want. The goal here in Norman is to put up some high definition cameras on the top of the OU buildings, so that if you have access to the network, you will get access to those weather cameras, or those cameras.
Is your phone up, Dave?
I think so, let's try it. I'm calling.
Yeah.
I'll be calling you.
Is there anybody?
Actually, there's more than one in this club, isn't there?
Yes, yes, there are a lot of us. And somehow we're all related.
Out there.
Why don't you call your house?
I just tried. You just, or you could get
Well, yeah, we talked to you my cell phone.
That's exactly what you mean. Now what happened is had it all up and running, it was running on a battery, that was the beep we heard earlier.
And the battery died.
And the battery died and pulled it all down, so that's what the difference is.
I got batteries.
Should have been using.
Yeah, that was too late. You were 10 seconds too late. You were going during the beep.
He needs to come see me seriously.
That's right.
Since it's emergency, the price moved from $20 to $49.95.
That's right. Delivery, there's a delivery charge. Brought in the rush.
And then there's the setup fee.
And don't forget, you're gonna get taxed on it all.
Right, you'll get taxed, and yeah, no, Governor Stitt will get his share.
And don't forget about the hazardous waste fee.
Hazardous waste. The general idea would be you put one of these in with like Galen's remote van that he's driving around. Because we have the backbone mesh up and running, he could hit one of either Sandridge or here or Red Cross or this Red Cross or wherever he's at. David Grizzle has expressed great need in Cleveland County area, because in the fire situation that they had out east of my house, they couldn't get internet from AT&T or Verizon out in that area. So put up a temporary 40-foot pole, shoot something back into town, and now you can pick up internet to get back. Again, we're under the amateur rules, so you can't serve for porn, but in emergency communications, we can run stuff through it that needs to get through, like UOC, web UOC, and those kind of things. Anything?
no Dalton. There's Dalton.
Dial tones come out of the phones. I quit calling phones computers a long time ago.
No, I don't know, Mark.
Nothing happening? You just want to really welcome to come up and look at stuff and play around? Do you have much more to?
The bottom line is, we tested it before we started this demo, and it worked fine. The whole idea is to get a bunch of nodes up so that we've got this backbone and we have the ability to connect into there without using the internet. That's the whole idea.
And so we can shake out problems like this.
Yes.
And have a repeatable way of doing it.
Yeah, have it running.
Any questions?
What kind of time frame for like Sandridge and Norman are you looking at?
I'm hoping within the next week to be going down and talking to Steve, and then get his put up. Once we get our standards up, then he can do his thing. So hopefully by the end of the month, we should have the start of this backbone.
You said that you talked to your house.
Your wife, the POC,
I did before the demo, but whatever we're having problems with now, I don't know what.
Internet question over here.
No, but I was earlier, because I called her, and that's when I told her, I'll call you back. She says, I want to talk to you.
Get another question over here.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering if it would work to call her now, since this one's not working.
I just tried. Yes, it does have an IP, and there's a way to call.
It's problem is it keeps changing. It's got 30.
What do you mean it keeps?
This was .44. Oh, Kim, you got camera one that's 44.
Yeah, that's,
calling.
that, here, I was calling the number 5, which would have been, that's what it's supposed to be calling. Hey, Dave? Reboot everything back there.
Again?
Yeah. And I'll do the same here. Yes.
You don't want to be on
That works.
The phone tells me it does it. You don't want to be on. So it's actually pulling the network from your house.
Yes, sir. And I know that because I can go to your camera and I can get to the website. So he's clean, so he's got a network connection.
Yeah, stack for one. No rear.
Back up again. A5KD, K1403, anybody else? Private copy of A5KD, the ARDEN link to my house via network. A5KD.
Turn it off and on again.
So, we're going over the ARDEN mesh via tunnel to my house and out the internet of my house. That's how we're getting out. So, the beauty of it is, I have tested this on a closed loop. And it works also. So, we don't have the ability to do a server, but anybody can get on, say, talk 39, talk on talk 39. Talk 39 doesn't mean anything, because there's no internet to go to, it's just talk 39.
From South Texas.
I tested this with the guys down in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
N5DLQ in Houston.
We were making
And
preparations for Scout.
Jason Johnson, who owns
This is the system that Colorado's using.
Now, I don't know. I know Colorado has one, but I know there's a huge network in California that goes from Southern California all the way to Washington State and out to Nevada and Utah.
Well, Colorado is like northern New Mexico all the way up into Idaho. And they've got something similar, and I didn't know if this is what they were
And
using.
it may very well be.
They're very quiet about it.
Yeah.
They've got a 2-meter system.
The thing about ARDEN is, for MCOM, we're not relying on the internet. Matter of fact, California, there's some places in California, we're going to get true to the word.
No internet.
No internet. And eventually that's the way we want to get it, but it may take a while for us to get there. Oklahoma Link.
They run it down on Friday. Are they still doing that?
Yes.
It's out of the area that's running it.
Yeah.
How many members does El Capa have?
60 something, but they don't show up as plugging. We're lucky to have this part of the
Friday night.
This is great. This is what you guys use.
Well, unless you
Yeah, well, Captain, we probably got 60, 65 active members. We got that new one. I was going with that. We are an active. We're trying to get to
this is the one that links D-Star, Fusion.
Oh, okay.
All at once.
After the presentation, they finish with the presentation.
I have the two phones pre-programmed.
About 82 on the left. 218.
Nine? Is that what you read? 314.
I think it's a building. I think it's a building. Demonstration never worked. Yeah, it's hell. Yeah. How are you feeling? Good, all right? Yeah. I wondered how your health is going. I think it's going okay. I'm supposed to go up to VA, but for my annual checkup, but it got postponed.
Has that always been on your eye there?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Right there.
Right there. It's skin
Little
tag.
mole,
It's skin tag, and what they call it.
Yeah.
I cut it off, but probably.
How's Linda?
She's doing pretty good. She's, you know, her balance is not.
I didn't either.
Isn't as good as it used to be, and she walks with a cane. But I mean, she's active.
My wife, the mother of my children,
Yes.
my ex-wife, fell down.
Oh my
She
goodness.
was going to sit on the couch and she was hanging on the couch.
Yeah.
Slipped off and she fell.
Oh,
Just like that. Broke her pelvis in 3 places. So,
man, that's hard on her.
and she's not willing to do the physical therapy that's necessary.
You got to.
She's not going to do it. She's over in a